October 19th meeting of the Nantucket Board of Health is now officially in session. Just to remind you all that this meeting is being visually and audio recorded. Are there any public comments on any item or issue that is not on today's agenda?
Doesn't look like it.
Seeing it's nice and quiet out there in Nantucket, we will move on. Approval of the minutes. We have the minutes from the last meeting. Is there anyone on the board that has objections, comments, corrections?
Not here. No. None.
Do I have a motion?
Make most accept them.
Second,
Second.
just for the record, I was not present at the last agenda item. So just note that in the minutes. All in favor? We have to do it by roll call because we're not all here. Carrie?
Aye.
Ann?
Aye.
Mr. Cooper?
Aye.
Minutes are accepted again. For the record, I approve of all of them except the last item, which I was not present for.
We'll get that updated.
So we have some septic loan requests to Kelly Road.
Yes, so the next two items, so 2 Kelly Road and 9 Ridge Lane are releases. The payments have been completed, it paid in full, but in order to get it released from their deed, we need a vote from the Board of Health. No objection to either of them.
And no objections from the staff. Any questions from the board?
No, not here, no.
May I hear a motion? We can take 2 Kelly and 9 Ridge together as one motion. Do I hear a second? Further discussion? Okay, all in favor by roll call. James Cooper,
Yes.
Ann Smith,
Yes.
Carrie McKenna,
Yes.
Chairman votes aye. And just for the record, Ms. Lepre is not with us today. Septic loan program updates.
Yes, so before we move on to the other two, I want to just give a quick update that I also emailed out. Town council did review our vote from last month to make sure that what we had asked for was legal. Their opinion is that yes, we are allowed to cap loans to 50% for non-primary residential dwellings. We are also allowed to require them to go with the lowest bidder. So the vote from last month is legal and we should be able to move forward with the program as voted.
Terrific.
Yeah,
I
so that's
think
good news.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because these, the costs are really getting up there.
They're starting to get rough. And we're seeing that across the Cape. This new Title V. I did meet with Barnstable County about 2 weeks ago. What we're seeing is the new Title V requiring IA system upgrades in all watersheds is starting to drive up the costs a bit. And actually, Don, you're here if you're seeing the same. It's driving up costs across the board. And then Nantucket installers have a premium due to our location.
Well, if we added them all up, we'd probably have a significant number we could probably sewer.
Correct.
A significant part of the island.
I would agree with that.
If we could somehow increase the sewers without increasing density of building.
I would agree with that.
Because I think we looked at that a few years ago
We did.
in Nantucket, and it was like $4 or $5 million. And that was 5 years ago they'd already spent.
Yeah, so the original vote for Nantucket passed town meeting and then failed at the ballot for the override. Since then, costs have increased. So we don't know what the new bid would be, if it would be Robert B. Hour again doing the work.
Yeah.
But they did tell us that they'd be able to keep it at the same timeline and costs similar to what we did in Shimo.
All right. Septic loan application, 15 Hinkley Lane.
Yep, we have no objection to this one. We are again requesting for the lowest bidder.
Any questions from the board? May I hear a
Yeah.
motion?
Yes,
Yes, sorry, Carrie, go ahead.
Yeah, so this loan application, is it subject to
the last month's vote, or is this being grandfathered under the old application system? Because this is a different form, I think, isn't it?
Yes, this last, this month's, these last two will probably be grandfathered. And then everything moving forward will be on the new vote. We didn't get a response from town council until this morning.
Right. Yeah, I didn't think that this would qualify. The 50% doesn't apply in this case.
Correct.
Okay,
Is
thank
this
you.
a full-time, primary resident?
No, this one is not.
Okay.
Yeah, neither of the two are.
Right, but we have to be fair and
Correct.
Right.
So, yeah, we have no objection to the Hinckley Lane one. We have a request from the applicant for the Cambridge Street one, so I would take those two separately.
okay, so I have a motion for 5 Hinckley Lane from
Okay.
someone.
Make a motion to accept the Hinckley Lane application.
Second,
Second.
all in favor by roll call, James Cooper,
Yes.
Ann Smith,
Yes.
Carrie McKenna,
Yes.
chairman votes aye. That application for Hinckley Lane is approved. Small print, sir.
Yeah.
15th of 31 South Cambridge.
Yes.
One.
So, yeah, 1/5. So
1/5.
31 South Cambridge is a shared system. And it
so
is
I
a
got you.
large system. We approved 1/5 at last meeting from the
Right.
applicant. This is another 1/5, but this applicant specifically requested to us that, or stated to us, said that he doesn't need this funding because the property was just transferred and there is money in escrow to pay for this. However, as part of the transfer, the homeowners association required him to apply for the loan. So just so you know, we have all 5 that are going to be coming down to us. But he did say he doesn't need these funds and he would prefer if we don't encumber these funds and take it away from someone else.
So what do we do with that?
So
you're
he's
saying
asking,
he has the money.
yes,
Why would they require him to?
it was part of the transaction. The
So does
previous,
that mean he's gonna come to us for the loan even though he has his own money?
yeah, what he's saying is feel free to deny it because he has his own money.
Okay.
Oh, I see. So
Yeah.
he doesn't need it,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
he's required to do this.
Exactly.
Okay,
You better be sure, because once we deny it.
That's what we
okay.
said exactly that. We have it in writing.
May I have a motion for the 1/5 of 31 South Cambridge?
Yeah, a motion to deny the 1/5 of 31 South Cambridge.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor of denying the application? My goodness, I think this is a first in my 12 years here.
Yes.
James Cooper,
Yes.
Ann Smith,
Yes.
Carrie McKenna,
Yes.
and the chairman concurs. Application is denied.
Should we somehow, I mean, I probably should have said this before we voted, but indicate that it is at the homeowner's request that we are denying, that there's nothing inherently.
I think
We'll reflect it in the
wrong
minutes.
with the
No.
actual.
It'll be in the minutes.
It'll be in the minutes that this was at the
Okay.
request.
It'll be
of
very
the homeowner.
clear that it was the homeowner's request to
Correct.
deny the application.
Yeah, correct. We can always put that in the minutes and we can also put it in the file, the email that we received
Okay.
from the homeowner.
Yeah.
Right, you have to save that email.
Yeah, that's in the, that'll be in the
Yeah.
file.
Yes.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
Short-term rental article discussion.
In light of the people who are waiting for their work, I was wondering if we can move 9 to the
Absolutely.
end.
If there's no one on the board objecting, we'll move the Caddy Head program up to this point. Do we hear any objections?
No objection.
All right, then we will move to item 14.
Yes. So this is the Caddy Camp application for this is an appeal, I believe. We did, after review by one of our inspectors, he did notice that this camp at Sankaty Head did meet the camp definition. So he chose to, we moved forward with requesting applications from the Caddy Camp discussion. There are 2 attorneys present today, Mr. Reed and Mr. Fitch, Attorney Reach and Attorney Fitch. to represent Sankaty. They do not believe that they meet the caddy camp definition. I will turn the floor over to Mr. Reed, and we can go from there.
Thank you very much. Arthur Reed, and I am counsel to the Sankaty Head Foundation, which operates the caddy program at Sankaty Head Golf Club on the area which is leased. The facility where the caddies reside is leased from the Sankaty Head Golf Club. And this facility has been in existence since 1930. It provides for teenaged caddies who reside at the camp and serve as caddies at the golf club. And it's been consistent and continuous existence over that period of time, almost a century. No issue has been raised about the question of it constituting a so-called recreational camp for children until this last year. The camp has continued without interruption, and the existing facilities have been in place for some time without there being any issue. And it's been subject to inspections in the past. The camp worked closely with Roberto in connection with the COVID requirements a few years ago. And again, no issue was raised about this constituting a so-called recreational camp for children. There's no question that the word camp has been used in the past to describe the facility. I know that there's language in 105 CMR relating to the use of the word camp as causing it to constitute a camp. I think that's unfortunate language because it either is or it isn't. But in any event, the program is now no longer being referred to as a quote camp, end quote. Now, a recreational camp for children is defined as any day primitive or outpost residential, sports, travel, or trip camp conducted wholly or in part for recreation or recreational instruction. Now, the caddy operation involving carrying bags, this is not a recreational facility for the caddies. This is a work opportunity for them. There are children of a broad range who come into this camp as teenagers to work as caddies for the summer. The objective is for them to earn money working as caddies during the summer. There's also a component in which there is college placement, preparing students for college and later life in terms of counseling that's given to them in the course of the camp facility, if you call it a camp, and in general to help these young men develop life skills that will help them in the future. Any recreation that is part of it is purely incidental. There's a period of time each evening in which, after dinner, in which the caddies are allowed to participate in recreational activities. This is not a focus of the camp. It would be more adequately described as a work camp than as a recreational camp. And the recreation that's going on here is probably not much different from what kids who would be staying in their own parents' houses would be doing if they had a basketball hoop up or if they had a swimming pool and was swimming in the pool. It's the objective of this is to provide the caddies and in the process to enable these young men to develop educational and life skills that will do them well for the rest of their lives. It's the only there used to be a number of these caddy facilities in existence throughout the country. And this is the only one that's left. It's been the only one in existence for quite some time. I understand that it was the subject of an article in Sports Illustrated back in 1959. And again, there's never been an issue raised in the past about this constituting a camp, recreational camp for children as defined, that would need to be licensed. So therefore, it's our position that the licensing requirements applicable under 105 CMR are not in fact applicable to the Sankaty Head caddy facility. And you may ask why we raised the issue. And the point is that this facility has been in existence for a long time. These are not new buildings. They've been there for a time. And the way that they are laid out makes it impossible for the technical requirements in terms of spacing, for example, among the sleeping facilities to be literally met. There's never been a problem with any of this. As I say, we worked with the Board of Health agent under the COVID pandemic in order to ensure that there would be safe operation of the quarters, and that took place without a problem. And only out of the blue, after all that, was the issue raised last year. I can understand that the question certainly would be raised, but when you look at the operation, the history of the operation, and the nature of it, I think that it is clear that this does not in any way, in any logical way, or under the definition, fall within the concept of a recreational camp for children regulated under 105 CMR. And so therefore, this is not strictly speaking an appeal. This is a request for a determination by the Board of Health that in fact the facility does not constitute a recreational camp for children, so that we can proceed as we have for all these years without that regulatory burden, and it would be a serious burden imposed upon the facility. Thanks.
Thank you.
The only thing I would add to what Arthur just said, we submit that the variance should be granted because strict enforcement of the requirements would do a manifest injustice. And we have shown that the same degree of protection without strict application of the regulations will occur if the variance is requested. By the way, when we filed our appeal, we were told that the Board of Health wanted us to request a variance, and that's why it's in the form of a variance before you. And when I say it would be an injustice, these caddies are generally low-income young men from around the country who are recruited in December and offered this opportunity to come to the island and participate in this program. And the concern at Sankaty is that they won't be able to accommodate as many young men in their program. So there will be fewer opportunities for these deserving caddies and up and coming students. So that's the only thing I would add to what Arthur just said.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Barnes, you have a comment.
Yes, Curtis Barnes. I'm a member at Sankaty. And as I was looking at the agenda, I was astonished to see this on the agenda today. I want to tell you that these are dedicated, committed young men. They work very, very hard. And they're not children, they're young men. The facilities that they have, they work during the day, they get paid for caddying. They have a basketball court. They're allowed after 5 o'clock to play golf. They can use a swimming pool when it's closed, but there is no organized program that, in my opinion, would qualify for a recreational camp designation. And as I say, I was a little surprised to see it, but I just wanted to support the fact that it's a great program. It does bring young men through here, and I've seen them go on to great accomplishments. 2 years ago, I asked why they didn't have women there. I thought they should have women in the camp, but be that as it may. Anyway, I really want to support the position that the camp has taken. Remember, it's not part of Sankaty Golf Club. It's an independent foundation, but it is not organized along the way a camp would be. It just has those facilities that are available to use in free time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes. You have any comments from staff?
Do you have a question? Mr. Reed mentioned earlier an operative word. He said employee. Are these caddies employees of Sankaty Head Golf Course?
No. They are, basically the caddies go up and to what's called the bench and are available for people who are playing golf at Sankaty, members and guests, to caddy for them. And the members pay them for the service of caddying. They're not employees of anyone.
Okay. The reason I asked, because when you mentioned employed here, if they were employees, this is simply a work camp and would not be subject to any of the recreational children's camps, and we wouldn't have had to be here. But as it stands, our comment is also in the packet. We did send this information all to the state in the correspondence with Carrie Wagner from the State Department of Public Health. From the state's determination, they believe this is a recreational camp. So that's, we're leaving it up to the board for the interpretation.
Sounds
Something as simple as putting them on payroll might change it all.
It sounds, well, I'll go ahead, sir. James, go ahead.
I have some questions. How could this thing, where, what you want them to do, tell me the difference from what they have to what you think they should have to do to make this thing go away.
John Hedden, Nantucket Health Department. So what's the, sorry, forgot a little bit on my short journey up here to the mic as your question. What's the difference between? Well, I mean, to be honest, with all the information that they submitted to us back in last June, to meet all the criteria of a camp, they're in a really good position as it is. They already have a dedicated infirmary, as I recall. They already meet a lot of the requirements. One of the big requirements for them is their housing situation, which is their dorms. And there's a specific square footage that's required for number of campers in a building. So as I wrote in my notes here, we believe children should have a minimum of 35 square feet for each child occupying a bunk bed. So they need 35 square feet for each child that's there staying in the housing. So that is, I believe, kind of the crux of the situation, which they feel diminishes their program. It's also required that there's 6 feet between the heads of the individuals sleeping there as well. So again, as a health inspector, chief environmental health officer, that's something I strongly believe in, that this is these requirements need to be met. There is recreating at the facility. It's already been stated here. I mean, to be honest, I'm just a little confused at the pushback of not wanting to be a camp, to have a permit from us to oversee, proper housing, proper food, sanitary conditions. They'd be permitted through us, make sure all the vaccines for all the campers are done. To me, it just seems another level and barrier of, protection and safety for the program that's there. But as is, I strongly feel they meet the definition of a camp as its recreation. So they're playing basketball, they're going to a pool, out to dinner, a sailing expedition of some sort, which we've witnessed online. So I think it's pretty clear simply by the definition.
Any other comments from the board?
Yeah. Carrie here. So, I mean, the word variance was mentioned as a versus appeal. So, and again, maybe I'm missing it. What is specifically the variance that's being requested?
So it's actually just an issue with our form. The form needs to be updated where it says, I'm requesting a variance, or it's a variance request form. This is more a clarification of regulation. Attorney Reed or Fitch, would you agree with that clarification of where this stands, or determination?
Yeah, I would agree. It's what we are asking is that the board make a determination that we do not fall within the definition of recreational camp for children, and therefore are not subject to the regulation. If I may just go on briefly about the question of why we're here. Yeah, there's no question that we can and easily will and don't have any problem with complying with a great many of the requirements that would be applicable for a recreational camp for children. And we worked through a number of those things with John and Jake last year. The issue really comes up on the question of spacing. And again, these dormitories have been in existence for a long time without any problem, without there being any spread of disease, if you will, or other health concerns or issues. And again, been inspected in the past. There's never been a question raised before, because no one had apparently been thinking of it in terms of what John and Jake, the conclusion they came to last year, that was subject to those requirements. But if we were subject to those requirements, my clients have analyzed what the result would be, and it would eliminate 8 caddies in each hut, of each of the 3 huts, the buildings that they live in, which would reduce the number of caddies from 60 to 36, which would absolutely decimate and gut the program. This comes up because of the requirement of the separation. The requirement that there be a minimum of 3 feet between individuals if single decked and 4.5 feet if double decked. All the caddies sleep in double deck beds. If we could maintain a separation of 33 inches between the bunk beds, which is the narrowest that exists at the present time, that would solve the problem. As an alternative, I mean, we're not here because we want to have a battle with the health department, which we have great respect for. If as an alternative, we could treat this as a request for a variance, from that requirement, I think we would be able to resolve the issue without further difficulty. Again, that is something that would be within the discretion of the Board of Health. We do think that the requirement that we comply with the provisions for a recreational camp for children is not applicable. But again, if we can resolve the matter on the basis of a variance from the separation, so that the facility can continue to operate as it has for many years, then I think that the matter could be resolved.
And you have comments?
Well, I have some questions that will lead into comments. What is the percentage? I think it's pretty close to 0 of caddies, trainee caddies, who are over the age of 18.
I think it's about half.
What was the answer, Arthur?
I think it's about half.
Half are over the age of 18.
Yeah.
Okay,
They start at 15. There are a few, but just a few 15-year-olds. There's 16 and 17, and then a number of them continue all the way through college.
so in a way, we should be looking at this less as, so whenever there are regulations about these kinds of things, it's done for health and safety. It's not just done for the fun of separating people because it looks better that way or something. So when it's done for health and safety, I guess we're talking half are technically children and half are adults. So maybe we should be looking at what the regulations would be for a residential facility, more like a boarding school or a college. What would those kinds of regulations be? Because I think it's pretty clear. I agree with Mr. Reed that it's not a camp in the strict sense of what a camp is. It's not for the purpose of, providing sports and entertainment for kids. But at the same time, I think we have to be really cognizant of the safety. The thing that you said, Roberto, is about the vaccine, about the public health, about, we've seen things spread like wildfire in the last couple of years. We need to be aware of those kinds of things. I think we have to be looking at it really from a safety, a health safety standpoint. And so I don't know if there's a compromise that can be made between the spacing that there is now and the spacing that maybe we could have a different. I don't know what those rules would be for any other type of a residential environment for young adults or college age kids.
That's two very good questions. We would have to look into dormitory regulations for an educational program, which I do believe have their own standards as well, which I would venture as to guess that this camp does meet, having been there myself. I would like to say for the record as well, yes, I was out there for COVID and they did not have large scale outbreaks. COVID was well controlled there during the last 3 years. So that I will definitely commend the Sankaty organization for that. We can look into the residential programs for an educational program, which is definitely one of the way this is billed as well. It could fit as an educational program. It is in that it does straddle that line of employment, educational program, or camp. I can see an argument made for any three of those. So we can definitely look into negotiating that.
Right.
We're not
It-
opposed.
It seems to me the organization has an excellent track record and you've complimented them on most of their
Correct.
health issues
Mhm.
or maintaining it. We're talking about feet between beds.
We believe this is a great program,
That is what we're talking about, feet between beds.
is what it comes down to.
It comes down to. And also, I mean, I'm having a hard time getting my head that this is a camp. Although you've got lawyers from the state saying it is a camp. So would it be possible if this board, we could wait and let you talk to these, to the camp, to the caddy group?
Well,
And see if you could find some way to reclassify it as dormitories since half the people are not children.
I think it would be a lot easier if we just made a determination. I feel like the board is leaning in one direction. It would solve, because both the state and our town council has said, you're the final say on the interpretation.
Okay,
My question is very simple. According to the statute right now, they're in violation.
If we define them as a camp. So what we're saying is, as a for example, if the students who are there are just recreating there, then they are considered a recreational camp. If they are employed there, they're not a recreational camp. If it's an educational program, it's not a recreational camp.
So someone
All
has to make a
three
definite-
happen.
Someone
it-
has to define what they are and what they're not.
And that's what
And so-
we're looking to determine here.
So right now, we don't have to make a decision, yes or no. Do we?
well, he's pushing us to, or we can do whatever you want to, but he said,
I would rather.
you said the third one was educational.
Yeah, an educational program, like a
It's
residential
closest to
educational
that.
program.
And that doesn't
That-
qualify as a camp.
I don't know.
Well, you have to be accredited by a recognized educational accreditation agency. So they need to meet that criteria.
Yeah.
So. And it's 6 feet from head to head. So we're not talking 3 feet, feet to feet here. And again, these are the minimum standards. And, these are sanitation, concerns and housing concerns. And there's a mix of 15-year-olds with 18-year-olds, and that's a bit of a concern. If you split it up to 18-year-olds, then yeah, we'd need to look into housing for dormitories, because that would be a different size, I believe, than the square footage actually required in the recreational camp code. So, and any variance they'd have to prove an equal level of protection. So if they were getting that variance from the spacing of the head to head and square footage per camper, I just don't know how that'd be possible. We've had proposals and we just approved, I believe, they're building a 4-bedroom house now on the property as well. I'm not sure if that's housing more counselors or who that housing is for, but they are adding another building onto the property. So it seems feasible that they could make this work. So.
Well, I'm just trying to find a way to make this work because I'm still concerned we're quibbling over feet. All right. And to a bunch of,
It's heads.
half of them are young men. Mr. Reed, what would it take to have this organization declared an educational program?
Well, it is a 501c3. The Sankaty Head Foundation has been accredited as a 501c3 educational facility.
Oh, so that sounds,
That's not education. Mr. Carey.
In fact, the Board of Appeals, in connection with a zoning question involving the property, specifically made that determination in a case a few years ago.
oh. So it's an educational 501c.
Well,
So it's an educational organization.
And I know Carrie has a comment.
again, I mean, this was the kind of stuff I worked in prior to retirement. I mean, I have several questions that, I mean, that a planning board determined as educational doesn't mean the state of the Department of Education has. And I think that's probably a critical piece. And the second thing is and this is a question just because of my experience in a different state, when individuals are being paid during training, there might be Department of Labor laws that are, kicking in. So, and again, I don't know enough about from reading what you have here, if that's an issue or not. The website does talk about recreation programs, and that was one of the things that I think triggered, besides visiting, but the website does talk about that. And and if individuals are over 18, if they're considered adults, can that, and I think it's a question we were talking about, are there different regulations for individuals who'd be training and they're over 18 versus the ones under 18? And are there different regulations? And if so, could the dorms then be set up for that purpose and still meet the criteria of a camp? Last year we had at the board, we had an issue, not an issue, but we had a lot of discussion about this, another camp on the island, because despite not wanting to be called a camp, they really were. And, we worked with them, and, I think we found a different path for them to deal. And a regulation's a regulation. I don't think we could grant a variance away from minimum standards from the state. So, I'm just concerned that there might be a lot of questions out there, and there might be some potential solutions. Again, is either any Department of Labor things? Are they a certified, or could they get certified as an education program by the state ed? And can the dorms be rearranged so that there's an adult set, which is be over 18, which applies as one set of regulations, and the under 18 might have to meet the camp ones?
Yeah, Roberto, I know you'd like a resolution from us, but I know that Mr. McKenna is looking for some more work, and the chair thinks something can be done. I just believe that. I don't know about my other two.
I agree 100%. I mean, I'm sure there are other workarounds, but I think that the one having to do with separating the young people from the adults could be the one that could get everybody out of this, and have those under 18 housed in a slightly separate arrangement with slightly separate, complying with those regulations. And if you're over 18, well, you take your chances.
I
Because
think,
you're no longer a
I
child.
think something has got to be done. I don't think you can just change the name, what you're gonna call it, and everything goes away. So I wouldn't vote on yes or no. I think that there might be a solution, but I think some people have to get together and work on it.
Mhm.
And like she says, separate some stuff, and you have to do some stuff, because I would not vote just because you change your name and call it something else, everything goes away.
Yeah, so I think, Roberto, what you're hearing from the board is we're not ready to vote on this.
Sounds good. We can
And
bring it
we'd
back
like
at a
you
later-
and the parties to sit down and be creative.
Right.
Because this is an important organization.
We agree.
In the end of it, they might lose 5 campers or something. Who knows? But not half. But you can work it out.
I think
Okay,
it's just an operational discussion. I think
Yes.
it works.
Arthur, you okay?
Yeah, we're more than happy to continue this application until the next meeting and meet with staff to discuss any of the things that have come up at tonight's meeting, and also to provide any additional information that would help with some of the questions that have been asked by the board.
Right. So to me, it's education and feet. If you can work on those two things, I think we can get through this. Thank you.
And it's Carrie, if they would, in doing the research about, possibly becoming certified as education with state ed, and also just really check out the Department of Labor laws concerning those type of training programs. The students are getting paid, and there may be specific sets of rules in there that I would want to make sure you guys, that the program is not, have trouble with that. So if we can use this month to address those two things in trying to come up with a solution that works and keeps the program whole.
Thank you all. So we'll talk about it next month.
Do we need to make a motion for continuance?
Well, it wasn't a public hearing,
Okay,
so we don't have to, we just talked, so
okay.
Yeah,
Thank
we
you.
can just add it.
we don't need a motion.
Okay.
43, 45 Squam Well location discussion.
Yes, I believe, yes, Jeff is here. This is a well that pulled a permit, but during the common period, the permit was, the well was installed. And then recently the neighbors did appeal that permit. Our staff recommendation on this one is that the appellate has to prove to us a manifest unjust here, because it doesn't look like the well is going to cause a lot of issues. But for the applicant, I believe Jeff is here.
Oh, and I forgot short-term rental. How could I? We'll go back to that after this.
Let's move that to the end. That way, the engineers who are here.
Yeah, let's the engineers and Curtis can wait, right?
Thank you. I'm old, I like paper. Yeah.
Jeff Blackwell here for the Berkeleys who live across the street at number 40 Squam Road. So I was called last week by the Berkeleys who had received a certified mail notification for an upcoming well permit application and at the property across the street. And they provide me with a copy of the permit application plan that was prepared by Bracken Engineering. And knowing that the well permit had not been issued, my first reaction was, there's a better place for this well, because the well location chosen did not coincide with the well protection zone on the Berkeley property. There was a way to apply for this well that would have zero effect on neighboring properties. And that is my usual approach. Let's pick a location for which there's no basis for an appeal and there's no effect whatsoever on an adjoining property. And the best way to do that is to line up the well protection zones along the axis of groundwater flow. So I said, well, gee, this is easy. Let's just make a request to the health department because the well has not been issued, well permit has not been issued, and just simply ask if they can adjust the well location northerly about 80 feet. But then later that day, the Berkeleys learned from their caretaker that a well drilling rig had been seen at the property, drilling in a well, apparently in the location shown on the permit application plan, and took some pictures. And then, I learned that, that without a permit, the well had been installed. I talked to the well driller, David Jenkins, who is a straight shooter, and he is a person that would never put in a potable water well without a permit having already, been issued. He's just a careful person. But it had been represented to him that the well was to be used for irrigation purposes. And on that basis, irrigation wells do not require permits. So Dave went forward and installed what he thought was an irrigation well. So I believe a cease and desist order was issued by the health department, and a fine was issued to Dave Jenkins. And to my knowledge, since last week, and correct me if I'm wrong, there is still no well permit unless a permit was processed and issued in this sort of clouded situation. Has a well permit been issued?
No, a well permit has not been issued.
Okay. Well, I submit to you that the Berkeley's, and I will demonstrate why there is an adverse effect to the Berkeley property. I think we're still in the situation. There is no permit. I reiterate that we're making a request that when a permit is issued, it is placed, it's the third sheet on the handout that I gave you. I highlighted in yellow the ample area where a well can be placed on the 43, 45, I think is the address. Yes, property with zero impact to the Berkeley property. And so I will, if I can just switch, that's the background of how I became involved in, speaking with the Berkeleys. So the second page behind the GIS, which is right there in the packet, is it's the second page. Not that one, but
This one here.
I had surveyed what is now the Berkeley property for a previous owner, so I had in my office a survey of the property, which I've shared with you here. As you can see, the property is very long north to south and very narrow east to west. And with the 43, 45 Squam Road property directly across the street. It's a 1.3 acre lot. And for those of you who've been around, it's Mimi Beeman's old property, who ran the Mitchell's bookstore for many years. As you probably know, soil conditions in Squam are marginal to sometimes unsuitable for septic system construction. If we're lucky, you have marginal soils and you can pull off a design. And that is the case with the Berkeley property. The property is also very constrained because of a large wetland, a large area of wetlands, mostly to the west, but also occurs on the Berkeley property itself. And there's almost no place on the property that is outside the 100-foot buffer zone to this wetland system. So it's a very constrained property due to shape, due to soils, and also due to wetlands. And on the third sheet that in that packet, if you flip to the last sheet where I was able to indulge my coloring habits. There's a blue shaded area on the Berkeley property, which is an area that is removed from consideration for a future leach field placement should the current leach field fail, which they all fail, of course. So the current the currently proposed well position does create additional unusable an unusable area on the Berkeley property for the placement of a leach field. That's an adverse impact. And it's an impact that could have been and can be completely avoided by the Board of Health simply directing the applicant to move the proposed well location. Now, they've got a brand new well case that was installed without a permit. And that well case could certainly be used for irrigation purposes or filling the pool or any other use there on what is a substantial development of a approximately 7-acre property. So I feel we're not making an adversarial request. The Berkeleys were very clear to me that they have no problem with the development of this property. But it is problematic for an already very constrained property to be further constrained due to lack of choice of an appropriate well location. So I will stop and I will answer any questions you may have, and thank you.
Thank you. Board have any questions? Comment?
Yeah, if the board doesn't have any questions for Jeff, for the record, Don Bracken Engineering, we filed the well permit application with the well permit plan. So the application was submitted to the town. Obviously, the butters got notified, and the well driller apparently did jump the gun and install the well, thinking he already had the permit. So that's about all I can say as far as the installation of the well without a permit. But when we put the plan together, you know, as Jeff said, he's careful trying to place a well where it won't impact neighbors and abutters. And, you know, we do the same thing. So if you look at the plan that we actually, if you look at Jeff's plan, we don't have to look at my plan submitted because it's pretty clearly shows what's going on. You can see the house across the street, number 40, in that shaded blue area in front is the area in question where those owners, you know, would like free and clear so that they could potentially replace or expand their septic system within that area. As Jeff said, the soil conditions, the soil records for this property that show that soil conditions are not very good on the site. Matter of fact, they look like the only possible location is where the septic system is now. There's a leaching trench there. There's about another 30 feet going to the north that's unaffected by where the proposed well influence zone is. That was on our plans and shown on this plan. So there is some room for expansion. If the well were to stay where it is, that wouldn't be impacted where the well is now. But I think the most important factor is between the house and the street line is less than 30 feet. And so the septic system would have to be 20 feet from the foundation and 10 feet from the street line. So that's actually not a very viable location to replace the septic system if you had to replace it there. The other thing I'd like to point out, when the system was installed, there was no reserve area shown for any future expansion. I think because of the situation, the size of the lot, wetlands, and so forth, and because it was a repair, reserve area locations aren't required to be shown. If it was me, if I were the engineer for this property and the septic system failed, I would say 9 times out of 10 in situations like this, you just replace it in the same location. You dig it out, you take out the spoiled soil, you bring in clean soil and replace it in the same place. I think that would be a much more reasonable alternative than putting it in between the house and the street in that blue area and requiring additional variances, either setbacks to property lines or the foundation. The well went in this location because that's where it was, we were asked to put it. That's where it made sense, given the other site programming on the site. From a technical standpoint, I don't think there's an argument that we're creating a negative impact on that property. So I think I'm sure there'll be more discussion, so I'd also be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have some questions, Carrie.
Go right ahead.
First, you know, I'm looking at the plan and everything says proposed. Are there any buildings or any other structures on this site yet?
Yeah, well, where it says gym office, that's existing. The proposed sunken game court, that's still proposed, that's under construction. The driveway that's there is under construction. The septic tank you see has not been installed yet.
Okay, another question where the driveway arches, it says proposed potable wells. So we got that well that was dug and, doing it without a permit, that's just, I don't like that. But anyways, proposed potable wells, what's that refer to? Is that a different well? I mean, it would sound like it.
Yeah, so the well in question is to serve that gym office. That's going to have its own well. And those other two potable wells are to serve the main house. That's not shown on this plan, but if you have the original well permit application plan, I believe it's shown on that.
So the well that was dug without a permit will be used for human consumption.
Well, that's our current plan, yes.
So the well was dug without a permit, even though it's going to be used for human consumption. It's not an irrigation well. Irrigation well sounds like a smokescreen right now.
Well, I never said anything about an irrigation well. Jeff suggested that it could be used for an irrigation well. They wanted, depending on the outcome of this, obviously, if we had to put a new well in someplace else, they would probably utilize that as an irrigation well because it's already there.
Okay, but the original plan, so I just want to make sure I read it right. The original plan did indicate that that would be used for human consumption. It wasn't just an irrigation well.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure I was reading right. I'm still learning these plans.
Jeff, you had something?
Yes, if I could respond to some comments of the chair. The first of which is, again, I feel like I need to be clear about my conversation with Dave Jenkins. He did not jump the gun. He was told it was going to be an irrigation well. Dave Jenkins is a straight shooter. He would not have installed this well unless he had been told it was an irrigation well. I just want to be clear about that. He was appalled that he learned afterwards that, he basically, there was a misrepresentation by someone. I don't know who, I don't care. But that's the basis of this installation. Regarding the number 40, the Berkeley property, there is no opportunity or plans or possibility of ever expanding the amount of bedrooms or the size of a septic system on this property, because the entire property is within the buffer zone to a wetland, and you cannot expand a septic system if you can't meet the 100-foot setback to a wetland. It would be considered new construction. It's a very clear no. The Berkeleys have no plans to expand the septic system or tried to do that. Regarding the setbacks, there are required setbacks of property lines, 10 feet, and in 2 foundations, 20 feet. But in the case of a failed septic system, which they will, either the Berkeleys or a future owner will be before this board for the required relief to repair the system at its current capacity. Property line and foundation setbacks are waived under the local upgrade approval section of Title V. It's very common to obtain relief from foundation and property line setbacks. And if the best soil on the property is in the blue shaded area, but they are prevented from utilizing that area because of a well protection zone, then that is an adverse impact on their ownership, but it goes to adversely impacting the best possible repair of a septic system in conformance with state and local health regulations. So this is an adverse impact. I feel strongly that to make that point, and it cannot be, I don't know why the well wasn't placed 80 feet north of where it was, because it's very clear and very easy to avoid impacts to adjoining properties. Not always, but in this case, it would have been very easy. We wouldn't even be here having this conversation. So I feel strongly that the well that was installed without a permit should not be allowed to be used for potable water use. And that the owner has many other options for locations to put in what is now the third potable water well on a very big development. Thank you.
You get the last word and then we'll move on.
Yeah, I think I'm just gonna stand by that. We felt when we submitted the plan with the well location, similar to other plans previous, that we weren't creating any detrimental effect on number 40, given what we saw as the circumstances for the existing system. So,
Thank you. Roberta, your staff have comments?
Um, well, can't say I really have any comments, anything more to add than what Jeff and Don both went through. I guess the one question I would have by lot or 40 Squam is it looks like there's room down. I guess that's the south. The southern the southern end of the lot where it seems to the wetlands seem to kind of break more towards the west, and I don't know what the soils are like down there. They could be bad, but I mean the only way to determine that would be a perk test. So I mean, I guess that'd be my only question.
I have to clarify, so we put this as a discussion.
Mhm.
We had a discussion. And what, do you want something the board?
So again, just like the form needs to be updated. Determination is the word that we should be using. Because in this case, with the well already present, the board can choose to keep that as a drinking water well, in which case the restrictions that both Jeff and Don discussed will be in place. Or the board can determine that this can be used only for a irrigation well, in which case different restrictions apply,
So what you want us to do is to say.
one or
this-
the other.
This hole in the ground,
Yes, yes.
we would like to maintain an irrigation well, so it's, but it cannot be used as a drinking well,
Either or, correct.
either or. Any opinions of the board?
Yeah.
Sounds reasonable to me.
Well, Carrie here. Yeah, I would irrigation well only, because if it was a potable well, it was done without a permit. I mean, it's just, and also I am, I have a heart for septic people, because I'm on one. And, when you have the land they have, I mean, they have extreme restrictions upon when it fails. So if the well was moved to the yellow area with a permit for potable water, and the existing hole in the ground be used for irrigation, is what I'm comfortable with.
So I need a motion along those lines.
Maybe-
One more, I thought you,
the only thing, I'm not sure what your motion would be, so maybe I can make things easier, because there's been no permit issued. It's all still in review. So if you make a motion, and this isn't, I think this is typically a staff approval.
well,
not
that's
actually-
why I'm confused, because this is a discussion and
Yeah.
it's-
It's only a discussion, so I think what I'd be happy to do on behalf of my client is to say that, I'll go back to them and talk to them about, making this an irrigation well and submitting a new revised plan, for a well location somewhere in that yellow area.
We have no objection
I
to
think
that.
that's the best, if you
But I
want to
think this
continue the
is-
discussion, but I'm sure that we can
it
make
should,
some headway.
but I think it's the sense of the board. We don't want this well as a drinking water well.
Right.
Correct.
Yes. Correct. I think what we can do is in discussions with Don, we can have this permit application amended to be only the other well, and then this one will be strictly irrigation if we work together.
Correct. I'll go back to my client. We'll discuss it, but I
Mhm.
have a feeling that they may be willing to go in that direction. And then I'll just submit a revised well permit application. Well, this shouldn't be a factor any longer. We want to continue the discussion, maybe that's the motion.
And the reason it's in front of the board is in the regulation, there is that comment period when a well application happens and you have to notify all the abutters. So this is as a result of that notification.
And if I may,
Yeah.
Chairman, I mean, it was installed before a permit was issued. I know we have the application has been submitted to our office. It's still in line for review. So alls I would say is the installation of the well was really done at the property owner's, the risk.
Right, I understand.
So, so it would be, either
So
the
what I
board's-
think the board will ask you though, if your discussions and review do not go in the, we don't like to tell you what to do. Okay. But we strongly advise that this remain an irrigation well. And as a chairman, I would request the health director, if that doesn't happen, to please get back to us, please.
Sounds good.
Okay?
Perfect.
Okay. Do we have any other engineering questions? Then we can go back to short-term rental.
Well, we do have,
How about
The
the
two-
tight tank?
the
Oh,
two
tight-
variances
yeah,
would
tight tank.
probably,
I
the
just-
tight tank, Nantucket Road.
Are these
and
gentlemen
Union Street.
representing anyone?
Yes, they are.
Then we'll do tight tanks.
The tight tank at 52 Warren's Landing. It's all tight tanks require a variance from the Board of Health. There's already a deed restriction to the one bedroom. There's going to be an executed contract with the septic hauler for the pump to pump the tank as needed. And as is required by Title V, there can be no expansion of enclosed space. So the staff has no now I'm blanking out on the word.
No objection.
No objection.
Good. This
Thank
is
you.
about all you can do.
Yes, this is the best we can do.
Any comments from the board?
Nope.
You have 2 minutes, Jeff?
Well,
I mean, you've heard
so
his recommendation.
this is a property where there's a seasonal cottage, one bedroom seasonal cottage. This has existed for many years and the owner is, the cottage right now is right up on the backside of the beach. And they would like to move the cottage back. There's a conventional septic system that was designed probably in the 80s that would be removed. And the tight tank is the best solution on this property to completely eliminate any contribution of nitrates into the Nantucket Harbor.
Right.
So
Okay,
that's kind of the long and short of it.
okay. If there are no questions from the board, may I hear a motion? Do I hear a second?
Second, the motion to accept the tight tank variance.
Okay. Any further discussion? By roll call, James Cooper,
Yes.
Ann Smith,
Yes.
Karen McKenna,
Accept, yes.
and the chairman says yes, it's carried. It is accepted.
Thank you.
Septic variance 227 Nantucket Road.
So this is a variance for that we have already approved before, back in 2021. The permit did expire, so that variance has to be approved again. So it's just a renewal. We have
Right.
no objection. Correct.
Any questions from the board? May I have a motion?
Approve.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, motion's been made to continue the variance, 227 Nantucket Road. Roll call, James Cooper,
Yes.
Ann Smith,
Yes.
Carrie McKenna,
Yes.
chairman says. Now we can go back to short term.
Yes. You can do that. So before you, and unfortunately, I only wrote this before the meeting, so Carrie, I did not get to email it out.
Okay.
So I did do a review as requested of the short-term rental article as presented for town meeting. I did provide comments. It's in the comment section here, but so that Carrie can follow along. In the registration and permitting section, I am providing a few comments here that in section C, it discusses about an attestation that the owner and operator will be in compliance with all applicable federal, state, and local laws. This attestation form hasn't even been created yet. This is going through this is another unfunded, there's another mandate that's going to be in this bylaw that the town staff is going to have to pick up the burden on to create this sort of attestation form and get it reviewed by town council. Furthermore, under the certificate of registration, there's a whole application process that still hasn't been created, especially now that we're moving to a new vendor. So I just wanted to put that out there, that this is, once again, the new vendor has to create it. The second attestation of the renewal is also the same thing. The staff will have to create a new attestation form. So every attestation that gets brought up, staff is now has the burden of creating this. It's not, all of this hasn't been fully vetted yet. So we're making references to things that do not exist in this proposal. Secondly, as we go along, there is a section under section G that specifically says that the certificate of registration is, if it cannot be transferred, if the property is sold or transferred out of ownership. My issue as a department head with this is there's no way of tracking transfers on a real-time basis. The only way we can get that information is on a yearly basis as the assessors catch up. So we would only be following up on these sorts of transfers at least a year behind. Further down, about halfway down, it talks about how the short-term rental will not be subject to will be subject to all the requirements except in the event that the dwelling unit is bequeathed to a person or another beneficiary through a will or a trust. We have no way of proving that. We will never, unless the applicant specifically brings it up to us and has all the proof of the bequeathing and the will, and that they have all the proper information, it's something we cannot enforce. Same with the deed restrictions. It specifically says that they can't operate any deed restricted, a short-term rental in a deed restricted unit, which would require the staff to now look at, do a deed review with every new application. And then further down where it says it limits short-term rentals in units to a maximum of 4 weeks per year, without them doing this on an honor system and informing us every time there's a turnover, we have no way of tracking it. None of the online programs, whether it be Granicus, Deckard Technology, or GovOS, has the capability of tracking turnovers in real time like that. So my question to the short-term rental work group is, how do we enforce this? That's an unenforceable section of this article. As we continue along further down that section, I mentioned how there is no mechanism to track conditions in real time, especially the transfers. All transfer information and turnover information we'll only get from the assessor's office as it becomes available to them. And then there'll be a delay once we have it too. There's no software capable of tracking these turnovers of when they happen. Lastly, there is a section in this new Article 1. It specifically says that the select board may designate a town official or a town board to grant a waiver from any of the provisions contained in paragraphs I through M of this chapter upon showing that such a waiver is necessary in order to prevent an undue hardship. So my comments on this is, we don't have a definition of undue hardship. We're being asked to enforce a legal term or a legal standard that we have no definition of. Furthermore, which board is going to be hearing these? I do
Yes.
not want the Board of Health to hear undue hardship waivers. It'll be a bombardment.
I predict which board it'll be.
So, and then also, if there is an appeal or a dispute from that decision, from that board's decision, who does that appeal go to? Does it go to the Board of Health? Does it go to the Select Board? Do we bring it to the court? Where does these appeals go? So my final comment on this is, as it stands, Article 1 has too many unanswered questions. There's a lot of burden on staff to figure out how to deal with these undefined legal standards. And even though we will have the registration program up and running as defined by the regulation from last year, assuming GovOS, the new vendor, is able to get it up and running before January, we would be able to at least start registering. Enforcing anything in this new article is going to be a burden that our current staffing cannot handle. And I think I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you. Questions from the board?
Yeah, so they expect us to stand behind this?
That's the discussion here.
You can,
I'm just gonna stay so far away from this thing.
well, we as the board, if we can, I mean, whatever we do is not going to be printing the warrants because, the finance committee and the planning board have already gone through this. But we can endorse Article 2. We can not do anything. Or we can say we object, or we don't endorse Article 2.
I don't think.
Oh, we can do it. So we make a statement, but it's not going to affect
I
anything.
don't think this has anything to do with the Board of Health.
Well,
That's my personal thing, and I'm staying away from it. I'm not gonna vote yes, no, or anything. I
well,
don't want anything to do with it.
well, my friend, the regulations will be under the Board of Health or the Health Department, and probably all those appeals will end up
Well,
here.
how are you gonna do that if he tells you right now we can't enforce it?
That's where we
If
stand.
we can't enforce it, why do we make rules? And put this down, if we know going into this whole thing, there's no way the Board of Health can enforce it. It just makes the Board
Well-
of Health look dumb in the end of it.
We have a habit on this island of not enforcing rules. I said once, we can't figure out how tall buildings are sometimes. We can't enforce fertilizer regulations. We can't enforce rental car regulations. And I'm not sure we can enforce these regulations.
It's been
Does Ann or Carrie have comment?
Well, my sense, as I've said all along, is that the role of the Board of Health is to watch out for public health and safety. There are some things that are part of this that could affect people's health and safety. But what I'm hearing is that we would have to have a whole sort of sub-department that would do that. We can't, given the current status of the Department of Health and of this board, we can't cope with it.
Yeah.
So I think for me, that's the question. I don't know what to propose. If they want us to do it, they'll have to give you a sort of a department of supervision of.
So the mechanism is in place for us to collect funding in the revolving account and then pay new staff through that revolving account. But we haven't collected any funding yet because the program hasn't gotten off the ground due to the issues with our previous vendor. And moving forward, we may be able to hire more staff. but as far as the changes to the regulation, to the bylaw that is proposed in Article 1, as the Director of Health, I do not agree with.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Carrie, you
Yeah,
have a comment?
yeah. So, first, I agree with Jim about, why would we write these? The Board of Health didn't write these regulations. So we're kind of, it's like foisted upon the board to enforce some which are unenforceable, because I have to do, for another reason, I have to do like deed stuff at our street. And, I know stuff changes hands. You can't get that information for a year. So some of it is just purely unenforceable. And the other issue is just the demands it's going to put, the stuff that might be enforceable still is going to put a tremendous demand on the Board of Health itself. So I have a lot of problem with both of these.
Roberto, if you were to go through this 3-4 page thing, are there some things that you think are the purview of the Board of Health?
I believe we can, with the registration program, it helps us enforce the housing code. It's the only thing that's part of the Board of Health's purview here, the housing code. When they discuss things like parking, noise,
Right.
things like that,
That's
that is
strictly not.
by far not our purview. We can refer to other departments, but the only purview we have is the health and safety of
That's right.
these regulations. And prior to your joining the board, when chapter 123 was first put in to the code, I was saying that had we been approached and asked before this bylaw was put into the warrant article, we would have told you that short-term rentals is not the problem. It's long-term rentals that we have issues with from the health department. And John, correct me if I'm wrong here, but it is very rare that we get phone calls to respond to health and safety issues to a short-term rental.
Mhm.
And in the last 5 Board of Health meetings, we've had condemnations for long-term rentals. Just to put it out in perspective.
Okay, so. Well, I think the consensus of the board right now is that we don't believe this article is enforceable.
I agree.
And
The changes to this article, yes.
so we will see what town meeting brings.
Do we make a motion not to endorse, at least officially? I know, again, it's not on the warrant, but if we as a board
Yes.
now would say not to endorse.
I think that would be appropriate. Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion not to endorse these articles as they stand.
Second.
I hear a second. Any further discussion?
I'm not sure that's the right motion.
Okay,
Is the motion not that the Board of Health should not, it is not, that this is not part of what the Board of Health does? Not that we don't endorse the article, so to speak. To me, that's what we're saying, that the Board of Health, this isn't part of our purview. This isn't what it does. We shouldn't be asked to be doing these things.
You're exactly right. We should not be asked. to do
So
this.
then the motion is not that we're not endorsing the article. It's that we feel that this sort of doesn't apply to us. I don't know, or am I seeing that
Well-
incorrectly?
So unfortunately, this was voted in at town meeting 2022, I believe.
You mean that
Um,
it is part of the Board of
So
Health?
it's already in the,
it's
already enacted.
it's already here.
It's already
Okay.
here. So what happened was the short-term rental work group created a series of changes to that article, to that bylaw. And that's what Article 1 is. And those changes add burden to the staff that was not previously there. That burden includes tracking transfers, property transfers, which is not a purview of the Board of Health, tracking turnover via short-term rentals, which I don't believe is a purview of a Board of Health. And also creating attestation forms and a board that will review undue hardships. Those are what they're asking to add to this bylaw. And what I am saying is those changes are unenforceable.
So we're in the middle of a motion. So,
Couldn't it be take no action? That's all I'm trying to say.
well, we're discussing that. We're in the discussion. Yeah, so that's another potential, is to take no action. We can do that, or we can vote, we can have this vote. I mean, Terry can withdraw his motion, or we can go ahead and vote on the motion. And if it fails, or we can make another motion to take no action. We can go that way.
Explain exactly what take no action. What are we saying?
It means nothing. It means we're not making an opinion about it. See, to me, I think we need to make an opinion. That's my opinion.
I would agree with that.
Okay, I just,
All right.
I guess I'm very concerned, and now I'm hearing that we really don't have a choice. This was dumped in our lap. But can't a department say, no, we can't do that, we
Well,
won't do that, it's not.
It's
not
sort of
what
too
we
late
do.
now. I mean, it's how much of this comes to the Board of Health, I don't know. It's
Yeah.
really on the health department. I mean,
Right,
we're,
Right,
so
exactly.
it's,
But we're sort of protecting them, I mean, we're, yeah.
so it's, if they put the appeals process to us, we may be having people here every week. But
I could see us doing nothing else but this,
Correct.
honestly,
well, we'll see.
I really mean.
Correct.
it.
So, all right, so let's move forward. We'll see where the motion goes. The motion is that we do not support Article 1. By roll call.
Wait a minute, say that, give me the motion again. Well,
The motion that we do not support this article, this is Article 1.
well, what does that mean? That
Yeah.
doesn't mean anything.
Yeah,
It means we don't support it. We don't agree with
It
it.
does, we don't agree, it doesn't, it's still in our lap.
So that
It's
by,
still in our lap, whether we like it or not. And what I'm saying is, it's not supposed to be in our lap because
Right.
we cannot enforce it. I would never vote for this. Any which way. I mean, it's ridiculous.
so the motion on the floor here is if you as the board refuse to endorse this, what it means is on town meeting floor, you are recommending to the town voters that they vote this down in your official capacity as. a board.
That's essentially what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to vote. We could,
I guess I won't vote.
that's your opinion. You can do that. Okay. If Terry wants to move with his motion and doesn't want to withdraw it, we'll take a vote.
I don't want to withdraw.
Okay, do we have a second? We don't have a second. Can the chairman second? I can second.
You're a voting member.
Yeah, I second the motion. All right. Okay, by roll call, Terry McKenna,
Yes.
Ann Smith,
no,
James Cooper,
No.
Malcolm McNabb says aye, therefore 2-2, it does not pass. That's essentially taking no action.
Yeah.
Okay.
There, let's go back to something important. For the health, no, this is important for the
it's
health,
very important. and it's a-
for the
it's
health
a
and
mess.
safety of
It's
the
a
island.
mess,
It's a
but,
mess.
Maybe we can come up with something.
So we need to ratify the condemnation.
Okay, 44 Union Street, emergency condemnation of attic at 44 Union Street.
Yes, so a few months ago, we brought forth the condemnation for the basement at 44 Union Street. And then since then, we received a complaint of a different tenant, this time living in the attic, where we found similar conditions. And we had to condemn that as well. So we do need a vote from the board to ratify that condemnation.
Any comments, questions?
No.
Do I hear a motion?
Move to approve.
Second?
Second the motion.
All in favor, roll call, James Cooper.
Yes.
Ann Smith,
Yes,
Terry McKenna,
Yes.
Malcolm McNabb says yes. Firefighter report. Now, the last meeting.
Is your microphone on?
At the last meeting, we had a long discussion about the health of firefighters. It was prompted by a report done on the fire department on this island. That report was comprehensive. It didn't have a lot of documentation of what it was saying, if I put it bluntly. So I agreed to go do a little research, dig into the issue. And I've sent to you a draft.
Yes.
Draft 3 is the present
oh, we
one.
have draft 3, okay.
And this is a research on exposures of firemen, which is primarily, there's a lot of literature, but I only used peer-reviewed literature. Certainly, there's an increase in cancer rates. There's an increase in cardiovascular disease. It doesn't match well with the age of firefighters. The cancer is really complicated. And there's a lot of meta-analysis, and a lot of the information goes back many, many years. So it's really hard to make a lot of conclusions. So I only tried to use the most recent ones. There is a meta-analysis that suggests that some of the cancer rates are falling a little bit in firemen, but that's kind of irrelevant because they're still higher than they should be. The pulmonary disease area was a lot of discussion in the literature, but the most recent meta-analysis doesn't really support a high instance of that. But what we can say is there's certainly no question that firefighters have a higher risk of cancer and cardiovascular disease than the average citizen, even from age-matched controls. Now, there is a program from the National Firefighter Association. They have suggested particular cancer screenings and particularly physical exams. The firemen have asked the town on various occasions to implement that. That's not been accepted. They do have health insurance, but certainly a full screening program would cost significantly more money or some more money. So what this letter says from all of us is essentially that we're recommending and encouraging the town to institute the program recommended by the Firefighter Protection Association, which is cancer screening and additional physical exams.
And I sent you a little thing back
Yes.
that the town also paid for it.
Well, the town is not in their budget at the present time. We're encouraging the town to pay for it, yes.
Okay.
That is our recommendation, or I got the sense of that. I say our recommendation, I wrote this letter, but I got a sense of that from our last meeting. And I did send this around for comments. Of course, I only had to do it individually since we can't have online meetings per se.
Right.
So any comments? Any other comments from the board?
No, I,
I'm not sure it has a lot of teeth unless we put something in that last paragraph or sentence about initiate. What does initiate mean?
That means start.
Well, I know that, but what does that mean in terms of take responsibility for? You know, take responsibility for paying for what insurance will not cover.
So you,
That you have to say that, I think.
okay, so you don't like the word initiate, you like it
Well,
stronger?
initiate's good because we're gonna begin it, but then you have to say initiate and take financial responsibility for, or something
So
like
They're
that.
town employees, are they town?
Yes.
Well, if they're town employees, that should be part of their
Well, they get,
health and welfare.
they have health insurance, but this is additional screening. So take, initiate and, would you say, take,
Take
Financial.
financial responsibility for.
any other suggestions?
Carrie has a,
Yeah, no, I just wanted, because it's at the last meeting and Malcolm cleared this up when we did our back and forth, that the impression was given that that they're in the contract, this is covered. And it is not. And that's
It is-
why I think our statement is important, because we feel it is. And my other thought is our firefighters, because of the, not full staff, are getting more exposure because they're serving more. I mean, the smaller group of people have to do all the work. So their exposure actually may be even more than a firefighter more on the mainland. So those are my comments.
Yeah, actually, there was one interesting, there's an interesting paper actually on atrial fibrillation, which showed a real, very strong correlation with the amount of time you spent on the fire. The more exposure, the more firefighters, the worse that was. And it was an excellent, well done paper. Again, I tried to only use peer-reviewed literature. Some things that people have suggested, other sources I looked at, but it was not peer-reviewed, or it was done by a firefighter association themselves, which can always be considered to be biased. So I tried to make
The
them.
one I told you about that was part of the CDC, did that lead you nowhere?
No, it did. Actually, that is actually was published in Lancet. That's the
Yeah, okay.
that's the first one. And that is actually, this is a revised one in 2022.
Okay.
The one you sent me was from like 2007. This is a working group from the World Health Organization.
Well, I mean, I'm sure they're really good. How I know about this is that, as I told you, my son,
Yeah.
it does this Camp Lejeune water stuff. And he said to me, Mom, it's easy. You just go to the something, something, something. And it was an acronym. It's part of the CDC. And they can tell you exactly what cancers are, various people like this are at risk of.
Yeah, actually, the references 4 through 6 are from believe are recommended from the CDC.
Okay, okay.
So I got a lot of
No, that's good.
I got a lot of information.
Yeah, that's great.
I got a lot of information on the CDC.
I think this is fine.
These are pretty good. As I said, they're pretty good references. There are thousands of them, but of course, whenever you're doing this, you have to kind of weed your way through them. And
So where will this go now?
we would send this to the fire chief and the town manager.
Okay.
And as soon as they make the correction,
Well, I would say a 2020, this is not a good thing to have in here. A 2020 review of the literature suggests that the risk estimates are moderate and declining over time.
I had to put that in there for fair balance.
Could there be more specificity about what is declining? You talked about that the cancer rate, but that those rates still are above the norm.
They're still above the norm.
But are certain cancers declining whereas others are rising or something like that? I think we should.
It is very
If
hard.
we leave that like that, we're gonna get turned down. I think.
I can expand a little bit. My concern is on fair balance. That's a
Mhm.
relatively recent meta-analysis. Of course, at the same time, there's the World Health Organization's group, which talks about them rising. The problem is if you go back and get a meta-analysis and you go back too far, you go back to the time where medical care wasn't as great, or technology wasn't as great, or screening wasn't as great, or people weren't aware. I'm not an epidemiologist, and this is why I think people who are epidemiologists probably don't get much sleep. Because it's the methodology is not, there's my future one. The methodology is a great debate. I will think about that sentence.
Is there a way to, I'm assuming you took that from that 2020 review meta-analysis of literature. Is there a way to balance it by saying, that there is conflicting information about types of cancer and decline based, something that kind of moderates a little bit, because I agree with you about the fairness. We don't want to kind of like look like we're not considering it. But this kind of, after all the excellent research, it kind of like puts a damper on it and says,
Yeah,
it may not be that bad.
Malcolm, I think that a paragraph above it covers what you're trying to say. It is difficult to establish an individual causal relationship between a risk factor due to the amount of time on the job, the amount of exposure to this, that.
blah, blah, blah.
I think you don't need that 2020 review, because I think you've been fair enough in the paragraph above.
Okay, you convinced me.
Yep.
That's why. Fortunately, if our committee was 10 people, we'd never get this thing written.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, a horse is a camel by
I
committee.
think you did a great job.
So,
No, I mean, this is hard to write, and I think it's pretty strong. And I think that the strongly recommends that the town of Nantucket, I think that, they gotta take this serious.
oh, they have to take it seriously. It's a dangerous job. Obviously dangerous, but there's all that this talks about. All right, so I will, if I hear no objections, I will make those modifications. Do we have letterhead, Board of Health?
Yes, we do.
I'll send it to you and you can,
I can get that over to
Get it
you as
out.
well.
And we all, and we don't have Meredith here, but I'm assuming all of us are willing
she told me that she was
sign.
fine.
Okay.
Okay.
So we can all sign, or I can just sign as a chair, however you want to do it. It'd be easier if I just sign.
Just sign as chair. And
Yeah, because other,
I'm sort of of two minds with that. One is to see all the names,
I agree.
kind of says, whoa.
Fine, we'll all sign it.
But I don't know.
We can.
You'll
print
just
it
have
out.
to go by his office.
Yeah, we can print it out, leave it at the office so that whenever you're available to come and sign it. And once all 5 signatures.
Once this is all done, I'll send it to Roberto and he'll put it on the right
I
station.
don't feel really strongly. I'm thinking.
No,
just
I
wondering
kinda-
what you guys all
I
think.
kind of like that.
Okay.
And just wanted to say thank you to Malcolm for doing this. It really, the discussion last meeting, was good, but this really kind of crystallizes and, like you said, gets rid of the fluff on from either end, and makes a clear statement. So thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Actually, I found it,
You liked it.
it was,
Yeah.
I forgot I retired for a while. No, it was.
Yeah.
It was fun and I learned a lot and it's interesting in there's always a bunch of like key opinion leaders, people, when you read literature, there's always 2 or 3 of these guys. This is what they do. They're like firefighter epidemiologists. It's fascinating. All right. Thank you.
So just wanted to add one last thing at the end before the adjournment. Quick update from our public health nurse
Yes.
on the COVID vaccinations.
Hi, guys. My name's Erin Schrader. I'm the public health nurse. This will be so fast, but I just wanted to tell you that our clinic is a go-ahead for this Saturday, finally, and I'm really excited about that. So I wanted to give the update. We will be moving everyone who had an appointment on the 14th. Their appointments should all be moved to this Saturday at the 21st, same time. So that's still in place. We have appointments available still for our November 18th clinic, And you can go online to the website and sign up through the color link there. We are working on adding some additional clinics, but we don't have anything confirmed right now. So as soon as we have confirmed dates and times, we will be putting that information up on our website. In the meantime, there are a few community resources available for people looking to get COVID and flu vaccines still. So Dan's Pharmacy is providing COVID vaccines. Spoke with them today. I think they're waiting shipment for the next batch. So, but they said, please encourage people to stop by in person, give us a call, or go to their website. And also the hospital will be offering the new COVID vaccine. I don't have all of the information on that. So if people are patients here, I think the best thing to do would be to follow up with their providers or check with the hospital about dates and upcoming availability. Otherwise, that's it. Very quick update. We certainly appreciate everyone's patience with the process. The distribution plan has changed this year from what it was in previous years. So we're just very excited to be welcoming everybody this weekend and are anticipating a good clinic. So thank you.
Great, thank you.
What is the COVID rates on the island now?
No, I was really preparing for this clinic, so I didn't look at the COVID.
What are the
rates. It's an
COVID
excellent
rates?
question.
They've dropped. So we had a significant spike approximately 3 weeks ago now. And then the newest strain, Eris, is not as strong. But it is much more virulent. It spreads quickly and it dissipates quickly, which is the good news. So what we were seeing is people can be exposed on a Friday afternoon, show symptoms by Sunday, but they are symptom free by Tuesday.
Oh, wow.
It's moving very quickly. It's this strain specifically. So we did have a significant spike, very, very similar to the Omicron spike from last winter. We had approximately 2.5 million viral copies in the wastewater, which is approximation of a couple hundred cases on island, and then it dropped. And it's what we're showing is only about 200,000 viral copies per liter, which brings it down to only 5 or 6 new cases per day. It's a low grade transmission, a small R number, but because it is low, it's going to be continuing to burn in our population for longer term. That's the trade-off. So we will be seeing it, and we do expect more spikes come this November, especially with the Thanksgiving holiday coming a little bit earlier, and then a week in between Thanksgiving and Christmas stroll. So it gives it enough time to get ingrained, and then people will be symptomatic by Christmas stroll again. So we will see a few spikes, but we have not seen any large scale use of the hospital due to COVID, which is great news.
Excellent. Good. Thank you. All right. Anything else? Any comments from the board? Questions? Anything else from the staff?
None.
Do we hear a motion to go home?
Motion to
Motion
adjourn?
To adjourn.
Second.
All in favor by roll call, James Cooper.
Yes.
Ann Smith.
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
and Sharon says yes. Thank you all. We'll see you.
Okay.
We'll see you next
Thank
month.
you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
This public comment, right? I don't know if you're aware.